What's up, everybody? We'll give a few minutes. People join the stream. I want to talk about this game from yesterday. Give some crow to the 49ers, some shout out to the 49er Empire, and talk about what happened and what do I think is going to happen the rest of the season for the Denver Broncos and where we go from here and those sort of things. So, playoffs, yeah. Well, hey, you know, the reality is that, I mean, if you go back and you look at what I've said from, hey, man, what's up? If you go back and you look at what I've said from the very beginning of the year, that the Broncos were a good enough team to beat anybody in the NFL when healthy, and we were also an inconsistent enough team to be beaten by anyone in the NFL, and I think that is the story yesterday. I think up and down the roster, when you look, if we're healthy, we've got a stronger team than the 49ers, but I mean, you got to give the Niners some credit yesterday. I mean, they didn't come out and get lucky. They didn't come out and have a great game plan. They came out and out-hustled us. They came out and out-physically played us. Their defense, they played from ding to dong. Those guys were bringing the heat, bringing pain, bringing big hits, lots of excitement and intensity onto the defensive side of the ball, and the Broncos couldn't match it all day. And to throw on top of that, you know, George Kittle having a career day against us, and I mean, I'm really not that surprised. We had a hard time covering tight ends the whole year. I mean, you look at Jared Cook, had a hard time covering him. Had a hard time covering San Diego's tight ends. We don't cover tight ends very well. And Kittle, I think he's easily right now the second or third best tight end in the game. I mean, the dude's a boss. He's a unique type of player, and he showed it yesterday with his ability to get down the field and make some moves into open spaces, not to mention he's got pretty good hands and pretty good size. So, you know, athletically, you really got to like what George Kittle brings to the 49ers offense. I want to give shout-outs to all the video makers here on YouTube, everybody in the Niner Empire. There's only a couple video makers that I watch, but I know that there's several of you on here on YouTube making videos repping the, what do you call it, the crimson and gold. But got to give credit to the 49ers where it was due yesterday. They slapped us around, and they embarrassed the Broncos, because this is a two-win team who couldn't even get the victory formation right at the end of the game that we got beat by. So, you know, the Broncos, look, we had a couple of big injuries, and I say this for every team. I'm not using an excuse, because injuries are part of the game, and every team's got to deal with them. And some years you have bad injuries, and some years you just don't have bad injuries. And this year we had them bad. And when you lose your two locker room leaders right in the same week with Chris Harris and Emmanuel Sanders, and then also trade away Demarius, and all you got left is rookie receivers who I think played pretty well in this game. And we've got a couple people hurt at corner and safety, and I mean, look, we started, I think, 7 rookies in the game, or 6 or 7 rookies in the game. No NFL teams start 6 rookies in the game that are playing for a playoff spot. I mean, they just don't do that. But we've been forced to do that, and, you know, it's okay, because the reality is that the Denver Broncos are not a solid enough football team to win a Super Bowl this year. Could we have maybe, you know, beaten the 49ers if things gone a little bit different? I mean, we were in it till the end of the game. Right there at the end, we had a chance. We go down and score. We win by 1. But we give up a big play. Vance, once again, is mismanaging the challenge flag. I mean, I typed on his interview on his post-game presser. I was like, hey, here's an idea, coach. FedEx me your challenge flag, and I'll throw it out to the 50-yard line when we actually need to use it, and tuck it deep in my pocket when it doesn't need to be used. Because you have no business having your hands wrapped around a red flag in the NFL right now. Bad coaching, bad challenge flag, bad play call, bad clock management, bad timeout management, bad personnel getting in and out of the game. I mean, it's a lot of the same things that we seen last year, and I really think Vance is in over his head, and I'm ready to see him go. I mean, I've seen enough. I've given this guy an opportunity, and he's running our proud franchise right in the ground. This is a winning tradition with the longest home sold-out streak in the history of the NFL. And, you know, we got a coach here that, you know, even though he's a Colorado boy and went to CU, he hasn't really had much success with anything to do with football since he left the days as a CU Buffalo. Thanks for everybody joining the stream, man. I'm really here just to give my 49er crow And give a shout out to the 49er Empire and all the video makers, man. You guys really put a number on us yesterday, and you showed that, I think the 49ers are more than 1 year away from really being a good team. I mean, it's still yet to see what happens with Jimmy G, but I think as a 49ers fan, you got to be really hopeful and really impressed and really optimistic about Mullins that you got back there. I mean, I like this kid. I mean, I really do. And I'm not so sure that I don't like him better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, I think he's a hell of a player, good little athlete, makes some good decisions. I think Mullins is a good little player. I think you got a good little find in him. But I think the 49ers are farther away. The good news is you got an offensive line, the highest paid offensive line in the business, the best in the NFL probably. So, you can make a lot of quarterbacks look good behind a great offensive line. And that's certainly what the 49ers have. I mean, you see that we had a hard time getting pressure on the quarterback. I know Chubb had a couple sacks, which is now, put him as the all-time rookie sack leader for the Denver Broncos. And he's closing in and probably going to earn the all-time rookie sack leading 14 sacks in the NFL by I think it was by Javon Curse, the freak. But the Broncos really couldn't get to Mullins that much and really disturb what they were doing. And I really think what I was really surprised at in the game is that the Niners defensive line was able to shut down all the running lanes for Lindsey and Freeman the way they did. Now, Freeman, I can see that they were able to do that because Freeman's, he's a little slower, bigger back, but Lindsey hits that hole so quick that I thought maybe we could skip through some of those slower defensive lineman interior guys that you have. I mean, they're all first-round draft picks. I thought maybe we could slip through there and break to the second level, and if we could do that and get Lindsey in some open space, the Niners defense might have had a little bit of trouble with us. But, you look at the Niners defensive line, my gosh, they did a good job yesterday, limited Lindsey to really almost nothing. I mean, I know he scored once and he broke loose a couple of times, but man, Lindsey, I don't think he had many yards, 36-some yards in a game. So what he's been doing to people the whole year, and to have Lindsey get shut down by the 49ers defensive line says something about what they got to build on there. I think the Niners are more than a year or two away, but I think that they're on the right page. They're on the right page. They're on the come up. They're not a team going the wrong direction, and I think the Broncos are kind of in that same boat. I mean, look, the Niners have won 3 games this year. We won 5 games last year. So it's not like our two teams are that much different. We've got some talent up and down our roster. You've got a little talent up and down your roster. And both of us need some more pieces of the puzzle before we're even going to be talked about as competitive in our respective divisions, and especially ours. I mean, you look at that Chiefs and Chargers are doing, even though we've beaten the Chargers and been in both games against the Chiefs, and we're still several players away and a brand new coach and new schemes and new systems from probably competing in the AFC West. And that sucks. But, what we need to find is pretty hard, a quarterback, for down the road for the future, and probably some corners as well. What San Francisco needs to find is some outside weapons, even though they've got a couple. They need a little bit more. But I see both teams similar in that. I mean, I know it's hard if you're a Niners fan to get on here and rep your team squad, but I mean, don't act like you're doing anything special, because I was on here every single week last year when we won 5 games. And people were laughing at us, and it's not like we got a good record this year because we've only won 6 games. As far as the rest of the year, I see, look, Baker Mayfield's hot, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see the Browns come in here and beat the Broncos on Saturday night. I think that, playing the Raiders in Oakland, that game can always go either way. And playing the Chargers, I mean, I really believe the Chargers are a better team than the Denver Broncos. I picked them at the beginning of the year to win the AFC West, and there's still a shot that can happen, although I think it's pretty unlikely, but it can happen. It's mathematically possible that they could win the West. But, I picked them as the best, so I don't really see us beating the Chargers, although I know we can beat the Chargers because we have beat them. Raiders, I don't know. I mean, I think we beat the Raiders, and I'm not sure what happens against the Browns. So, at best, I see us winning 2 more games, maybe 1. And, hopefully we can win 2, get to 8-8, and at least have a respectable season, because 8-8 is a better year than 5-11, what we had last year. And if you take that 8-8 and looked at, we were a wide open Demaryius Thomas in the Chiefs game from winning that game, a missed field goal by Brandon McManus in the Houston game from winning that game, and bad clock and timeout management in really collectively all the games, which cost us another game. So now you take those 3 wins of mistakes that you can clean up in a game that you should win, and now you're talking about a team with 10, 11 wins. And so I just don't think that the Broncos are that far away if we can get to a respectable 8-8 record. I think probably the playoffs are done. I know we're not mathematically eliminated, and I'm not going to lose hope until we are mathematically eliminated. But I just see a team here that is very inconsistently, not only on the field, but the way we're coached. And I think that we're just not there yet. We're not there yet. We need some more players. So, and definitely some new coaches. I mean, I think Vance Joseph is going to go down for me as the, like the Shakespeare of the Denver Broncos. To challenge or not to challenge? That is the question. Because it is the question with him. I mean, there was 2 times yesterday when he should have thrown his challenge flag on big plays, and he didn't. I mean, that's either him not getting the correct information from his coaching staff up in the press box, because they see the same replays that we're seeing. I mean, they got the TVs on in there, and they usually will show the replay in the stadium, and he was just hesitant to throw that flag, and those were on a couple of big plays where we could have maybe got a stop, got the ball back with a couple of timeouts. And, look, we were only down 6 and had a chance to, anything can happen. Anybody can break a big play and go score. At the end of the game, I mean, just the clock management, even on the 49ers. I mean, you see it with their, not rookie coach, but, second-year coach and first time he's ever been a head coach along with ours. Just those types of things. I mean, giving the ball back to us to run one play. You saw what happened to the Dolphins and New England game yesterday. That could have happened yesterday. And how horrible as a fan and as a player and as a coaching staff do you feel if something like that happens when it was just absolutely unnecessary? So, I mean, I think that's the shortcomings of a new coach and Mullins not being a real experienced quarterback. But all in all, I mean, from what I saw yesterday from the 49ers defense, these boys came out and they came out to win. They didn't come out to just play the game and collect a paycheck. Specifically their defense and their defensive line, these guys came out to crack heads open, and they really put a whooping on the Broncos. And the Broncos deserved it because we just didn't match that type of intensity. I think, all things being taken equal, you give us Emmanuel Sanders and Chris Harris don't get hurt last week, I really don't think that they'd end up beating us. I mean, I just don't. We have too many weapons for them to cover if that happens. And I don't think Kittle gets as loose as he does with a healthy secondary. But you know what? The 49ers can say the same thing. We would have been better with our running back who got hurt and Jimmy G on the sideline. And we lost Reuben Foster, and we've had some injuries. And, look, all teams are injured at the end of this year. I mean, our starting center, who's the captain of our offensive line, is out. We have 3 starters around the offensive line. They're out. And that's just the way it goes some year. And every team in the NFL has to deal with this. So, that's pretty much all I will have to say. Just want to give a shout out to the Niners, the Niner Empire. Good win, man. I mean, in this league, it's hard to get wins. And I said in my pregame video that, any given Sunday, I know that you can be beat by anybody in this league. There's no one in this league that can't beat you. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a Chiefs fans. You can get beat by the 49ers. If you don't come out to play, you can get beat. Because all of these players are getting paychecks. They're all pros. And the difference between a starter and the second string guy in the NFL is not a huge wide margin. I mean, let's be honest. If you're on the practice squad and you got a uniform, if you're wearing 49ers or Denver Broncos or Kansas City Chiefs or Green Bay Packer logos at practice, you can play football. Now, you might not be an elite player, but, you pretty much expect anybody that you put in the game that, they're going to have to play. And, there's only 53 people on that roster. So injuries are going to be something you have to deal with. And you got to pick up some free agent signings. I mean, we certainly have half of the guys that were in the dang game yesterday. I've never even heard of them. We picked up a free agent wide receiver, a free agent corner. We've got 4-string wide receivers in there, backup offensive linemen, backup corners, rookie guys everywhere. So it was an unrecognizable Denver Broncos team for most Broncos fans, except the real ones out there who know who's on our roster and what our depth chart looks like. You're going to win the West for the next 10 years. Yeah, I know the Chiefs are really high and mighty. You're going to do this and you're going to do that. We'll see. when Patrick Mahomes gets to sign his contract, how much of that team you can keep together. Because right now, all you guys are doing is living in a fairy tale, Chiefs fans. And that's exactly what you've been living in for the last 50 years because your team has sucked. And now you finally got a little bit of taste of success, and all of a sudden you're going to be good for 10 years. You sound like Cowboys fans. Anyway, shout out to the Niners, Niner Empire. Thanks for everybody coming and joining the stream. I know that there's a lot of you down here commenting. Like I've told you before, I filmed these on an iPad, and they just flip through there, and I don't know how to get the comments so they stay on the screen at all times. So I wish I could, because they just flash up. Wait a minute, what's that? They just flash up and then they go away and they don't stay there running on the screen. I think what I might do for future live streams is set up my laptop and then just, turn on this live stream and turn the volume down and then just make the comment section the whole page so I can read it, because I'd like to interact with you guys a whole lot more, but it's really hard for me. Yeah, we should have won some more games this year, David. Yeah, we should have. We should have won more games, but look, man, I mean, you are what you are in this league. I mean, should we have won some more games? Yeah. But I feel like if you're an Oakland Raiders fan, you could say, we should have beat the Denver Broncos. They stole one from us. I feel like if you're a Seattle Seahawks fan, you could say, we should have beat the Denver Broncos. They stole one from us. So, should we have won more games? Yes, but we maybe should have lost a couple of games. So, I think in the NFL, I mean, look, you are what you are. If you finish the season 5-11 like we did last year, you're a shitty 5-11, sorry, sucky team in the NFL. And that's why we got Bradley Chubb as the number 5 pick overall, which, let's just touch on that for a second. I mean, looking back on that, if you go back and watch any of my videos, I told you that the number 1 quarterback that I like in the draft was Josh Allen. The second quarterback I liked was Baker Mayfield. Then I liked Rosen. Then I liked Sam Darnold. Those were my picks. And then Lamar Jackson after that. I think, really, if I look at all that, maybe Lamar Jackson moves up in front of Sam Darnold, maybe even in front of Rosen, but I think Rosen's going to end up being okay. But, for us to not have a choice at one of those 2 quarterbacks, which I think clearly are the best 2 competitors and quarterbacks that are playing the game right now from the rookie class last year, to have been able to pick Bradley Chubb, I mean, come on, man. Elway ended up with 2 guys that are rookies that are really in contention legitimately for the Rookie of the Year in Chubb and Lindsey. I mean, how are you going to deny Bradley Chubb Rookie of the Year if he has 14, 15, 16 sacks this year? If that happens, that's a record that's been standing for a while. Something that doesn't happen very often. And to break the Broncos' all-time sack record for rookies, beating Von Miller's record, I mean, I think you can see that we took the right guy here at number 5 and got ourselves a dang beast. So I think the Broncos, we did good in this draft. We've missed on some other ones, but we did real good in this one. And I think that you could say that this rookie class is the best draft the Broncos have ever had. And as long as I can ever remember being a fan, by far. It's unfortunate what happened to Jake Butt, and it would have been exciting to see what maybe he could have done. But I think that the Broncos are on the right path. But what we're going to have to do is have a couple more drafts that we got to string together, because you got to build your team through the draft in the NFL. You can't do it through free agency. The guys are overpriced. A lot of them are washed up. You can fill in a couple of gaps, and you certainly need to do that in free agency. But you got to build your team through the draft. And, a lot of people are on Elway's case that he's the one that needs to go, and I disagree with all of you. As far as I'm concerned, Elway can stay here forever. If you go actually look into the facts, Elway's one of the top 10 GMs in draft picks when you take into consideration how many guys that he's drafted are either on NFL rosters still, or, and most importantly, starting on NFL rosters. Because even if they left here, we got some sort of trade value with them, or they just played really well and we had to release him because of salary cap issues. But Elway's drafted pretty well. What he's done not well is draft quarterbacks, but he's never really had a serious opportunity to draft a quarterback other than last year. I mean, moving up to get Paxton Lynch. I mean, these guys, I mean, they're just not one of those top elite guys that's in that top couple of quarterbacks being picked. So, I think on one hand, he's probably scared to draft another quarterback, because if he drafts another one and it don't work out, everybody's really going to ridicule him. But the reality is that when you look at our entire roster, a lot of people are making these decisions on who to draft. It's not just John Elway. It's a whole group of people. And ultimately, his rubber stamp is on it because he's the GM, and that's the way it should be. And you got to hold those guys accountable. But I'm never going to ask a guy who won a couple Super Bowls and a Super Bowl MVP why he was playing here and then has taken us to a couple more and let us bring home a Lombardi why he's been the GM here. It's more than just the draft. It's about who can you get as free agents, who can you talk into as undrafted free agents to come here. So you got to evaluate, our drafting ability in Elway over the whole picture and not just what he's done in the first round, because I'll be the first to admit Elway and the Denver Broncos have not done in first-round draft picks other than this year, going all the way back to really Von Miller. I mean, I think that if Bradley Chubb stays healthy, you can see that he's got the ability, the size, speed, quickness, and strength to potentially be a Hall of Fame player if he can do this for 12, 13, 14 years in the NFL. That's exactly where he's going to end up. And that's exciting because, I don't know how long a lot of you guys out there who are Broncos fans have been watching the Broncos, but I will tell you this. I've been watching the Broncos since I was 9 years old. And I moved to Colorado when I was 9 years old, and that was right before we drafted Elway. And then growing up in that whole time of all of his fourth quarter comebacks and all, it's really hard not to be. I mean, the games were so exciting. And it was unbelievable. He took us to all those Super Bowls. Some of them didn't work out well. 49ers beat us in one. Giants got us in one. But what I want to tell you about that is along a lot of those years in the 80s and 90s that a lot of you probably don't know, early 90s and most of the 80s, Denver didn't really have a pass rush. I mean, other than Simon Fletcher, we didn't have anybody come on the outside that could really put pressure on the quarterback. And I remember as a junior high kid and a high school kid just screaming at the TV like, we can't win if we can't get pressure on the quarterback. And I'm sure there's a lot of you out there right now that are fans of other teams. If you can't get pressure on the quarterback, that's exactly what you're screaming because it's the key in the game. I mean, look, every hate week video that anybody makes when they're playing New England says, #1 key to the game, got to get pressure on Brady. You got to get pressure on Mullins. You got to get pressure on Case Keenum. You got to get pressure on every quarterback. And if you can't get pressure, quarterbacks that have pro-level skill are going to dice you up on Sunday. So my point is that we went through lots of years where we had no pass rush. And here we're overflowing with pass rush. Our cups are full with pass rush. And so it's just as hard to find an elite outside defensive end, whatever you want to call it in the NFL, as it is to find an elite quarterback. So I feel confident that at least last year, the draft pick that we got at number 5 with Chubb was well spent. And, we can never look back and say, well, we could have maybe got Mayfield if we wanted to trade up, get a quarterback, whatever. There's going to be other opportunities. Case Keenum's going to be the quarterback in Denver next year. Book it, believe it. You heard it here first. But I hope Vance Joseph is gone on down the road because you're in over your head. Thanks for everybody showing up on the stream. This is the OG Bronc Nuts from the 719 West. Checking on up out of here, being handed my, 7th crow of the year. 11 of them last year. It's hard making all these crow videos. I'm out. See y'all later, suckers.